Welcome back to the France 24 debate. We have four people here to discuss the situation regarding France and its finances. Frankly, if France were an individual, I think it would be put through the courts and pursued by the bailiffs for the situation so far. France telling the EU it won't meet its requirements to bring its public sector debt down to 3% by 2015. If I'm wrong, these four people here will correct me because they've got ideas aplenty on the situation. Let me start by introducing them in no order of preference. I'll start with Jean-Paul Betbez, who's here, pro-Europe, pro-France, and a man with some solutions. Thank you, sir, for being with us. On the other side of our plateau, we have Philippe Cordery from the Socialist Party. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you again.
Under pressure in the first half, but I sense we're going to come back with a bit of aplomb. Look at that smile. Crossing back over the other side, Marcus Kerbos from the Technical University in Berlin, a man with ideas that you've expressed very clearly and very forcefully, and we've appreciated that so far, sir. Thank you for being with us. And last but not least, it's Daniela Schwarzer from the German Marshall Fund of the United States. I hope I got that in the right order.
You did.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your contributions in the first half. Let's start this second part of our debate by listening to Manuel Valls. Manuel Valls, of course, Prime Minister of France. He's been very forthright, saying that France does not need to be told how to run, in any way, shape or form, its own business.
It's up to us to decide on our budget. We're only asking our European partners to take into account the unfortunate economic reality that we face today, the Eurozone's economic crisis. They must respect France. It's a big sovereign country, politically, militarily, but also economically. I don't accept that they give us a lesson on good management. We will ask everyone to keep his head and show respect when we meet our European partners.
French managers are well respected. Many of them go abroad and run companies, don't they, Philip? That's the problem.
But many foreign companies come to France too. That's mobility, and that's the international sort of worldwide community that we live in. But I mean, today what we need, I mean, it's not just because France is a big country. It's in the interest of the European Union that we have another policy on the European level, and that we need growth. Because if we are going to tighten our belt, as we are doing in France and in many countries, we need the complementary policy on the European Union of investment. And I think that's the big challenge for tomorrow, is to have a real investment plan. Because, including for Germany, I mean, growth in Germany, we're seeing the signs of the limits of growth in Germany. It's the same for all the countries in the European Union today, because if you have no markets, you have no more German economy. So it's in the interest of all European Union countries, including Germany, to have a growth policy on the European level.
Can I bring Daniela in? Do you agree with what Philip's saying there?
Well, I think it is true that we are extremely interdependent and that Germany won't fare well if France is in a bad shape. I think that's absolutely true. I think we are discussing on two levels here. The one question is, what can and should the European level do? And the quotes of Manuel Valls show something very clearly, and that is that his logic still is we are a sovereign state. We have our competency in the field of foreign security policy, budgetary policy, basically everywhere. And I think the introduction of the euro has created a completely new situation. And that is that we are actually one economy. And that means that fiscal policy induces great interdependencies. And what we now have to do is we have to prevent national fiscal policies going beyond certain objectives, which we have jointly defined. And this is why the French case is so important at this point in time. And at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, do we actually have all the tools we need on the European level in order to manage this economy or to create a context where the private sector can fare well? Right now, we have a situation where the private sector doesn't invest enough. The conditions in some countries are very difficult to access credit. And that is where that claim comes in, Europe needs to do more, in my view. It is not discretionary spending. It is rather creating a context where the private sector can actually, on the European level, have better conditions to fare well. So I would invite us all to think on both levels. And the national level, basically, these days, with an integrated currency, shouldn't be seen as the only solution. We have to think in a European way here.
Okay, Marcus, in terms of...
I think the words of Mr. Valls are anachronistic, and he quite clearly represents the common ground of political thinking in France, left and right, put together. France wants to have all the advantages of Europe, in particular of the European Monetary Union, and not paying tribute to the roots, as I recently said. And this is totally incompatible with the European system. if there's one country in particular of the weight, of the economic weight, and of the political ambition like France, because setting a bad example will provoke those who say, why not we? How can we impose discipline on smaller countries like Ireland without showing a good willingness to perform better in terms of fiscal adjustment? By the way, those who claim now that only by growth and through growth we can get out of the crisis, I tell them, to you in particular,
for 10 years.
I tell them that France is getting very accommodating conditions of refinancing her debt. Short-term money gets negative interest rates, so you get money paid by the investors to place your bonds. This is an exceptional situation where ECB and your man on the board, Benoît Cœuré, who is a left-wing guy, plays a very important role. So we will not get more accommodating conditions from ECB, and we have a phase of, let's say, policy, of monetary policy, which enables fiscal adjustment and which has opened a time window for the different nations in order to get reforms underway. And on the other hand, we need reforms on the supply side very quickly, the labour market. Daniela mentioned all these points, and there is unwillingness. There is what I would call French rigidness, and these rigidities.
Do you live in France?
These rigidities
You haven't seen what's been happening in the last 2 years, then?
are very specific to France. This is a corporatist country. Jean-Paul will certainly consent.
Jean-Paul is dying to speak. Please let him speak, Marcus.
Let him ever say to confirm what I've just
Go ahead,
said.
Jean-Paul. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Or not.
No, you know what happened is that we have to be technical on this, and you should do better, really. You know, as far as Europe is concerned, we are in a mess. Okay, the world is in a bad situation. Today, we have the stocks which are falling. So this is serious, okay?
It was the first thing you said when you came in. The stock market's taken a dive,
and I am worried. And they are falling, of course, here in Europe, but everywhere, and in the US. So the situation is more severe than what we have in mind. And the question is not as to see if French people are lazy or not. There are questions concerning France. I know. I have been living here for quite a time. I know this, okay? But the situation is very global and has to be taken globally. This is a part of the story. There is another element which is Europe and the Eurozone, and Benoît Cœuré is not our man on the board. Benoît Cœuré is a member of the board, and as a member of the board, he is European and not from a specific country. You have to be very specific on this, because this is the base of the system, the situation. Thirdly, concerning the question big countries and small countries, what happens is that for a while small countries played with this. Okay, and what happened is that, for example, Ireland had advantages concerning reduction taxes or something like that, saying we are small, help us or something like that, and the big ones say we are big and that's it. And now this is no longer possible. The big are suffering as well.
Of course, Ireland passed that on to the likes of Facebook and Apple. They gave tax breaks to people like that, and they rather look after their people.
And we were all complacent, okay? And the question with complacency, it's really is something very problematic. As far as France is concerned, we have to be very serious, okay? And as I said, of course, we have to cut expenses, we have to modernize the public sector. It's not austerity. Austerity is not a word which is for economists. Economists doesn't know what it is. Modernity, they know. Okay, they know the fiscal multiplier. They know this. I am a university professor. I know a few things about this. Okay, and austerity has something to do which is very different, which is maybe political or something like that, psychological. But technically speaking, we have to be very serious. And the source of the rigidities you mentioned are, I repeat myself, the question within the companies. If we modernize, we have to modernize within the companies. And the labor market reforms have to be implemented more than we had in mind. Because what happened is that there have been some agreements, they are late, they are insufficient, and the crisis is ahead of us, and the crisis is forcing us to do more. And this is exactly what happens now with the labor market. The key source is the labor market.
And this is
what happened with the SMEs.
This is the kind of thing that Jean Tirole, who won the Nobel Prize for Economics, has been talking about for some time. That needs to happen.
He's a friend of mine.
And what is the issue? What is the issue regarding France then? Why can't these reforms happen? Why are things... I'm from the UK, but I've got a French degree. I love reading Proust. I think French football is okay, not as good as English. French rugby is brilliant. I love France, but I hate the way things work in France. The tax is complicated, life's complicated, it's difficult. Why?
Because you can't change things overnight. And the reforms are taking place. I mean, what Emmanuel Macron announced earlier on, but also, I mean, the Responsibility Pact, the CICE. I mean, it's 50 billion economy, and including 30,000 for the enterprises to give more room to manoeuvre because we have a real competitiveness issue.
We have to confess that we are late.
We are late, but because nothing was done for 10 years.
Mark has asked or raised a very fundamental question, and he deserves a fundamental answer. I will attempt to give that answer. What is wrong in France, fundamentally speaking, is the role of the state. The role of the state is some sort of nursery.
Is it that simple?
And the state is everywhere. The amount of state participation in economy is enormous. The Paris power on corporations is enormous, and this is part. This is the role of the state is part of the rigidities which France have to overcome. The French are extremely creative. They are extremely good entrepreneurs, and all the entrepreneurial energies which are in the French people, which I feel, and which are enormous, have to be liberated. And they can only be liberated if the French have the guts to get rid of a state, of a superpower. And this is a little bit, in between. On one hand, they want to keep the advantages of a nursery state. On the other hand, they want to have free enterprise. This is not totally compatible. So we do need a liberal and pragmatic reform.
Let me bring in
We don't need a socialist way. If we go on that like that, we need more Macron.
That's called democracy, isn't it?
And that's called democracy. And if you may, if you look at Germany and France,
we need more
only
Macron
ones to do the real reforms are the socialists and the social democrats. Because the conservatives were in power, they never do the reforms.
Whatever they do, whatever you call
that was right for Schröder.
Whatever you call it, I think Macron is a good guy. He has a socialist style. He is within the Socialist Party. He is in the majority. I don't mind about that. I don't care about that. What is very important that his reforms are real breaking reforms, taboo breaking, and that he's getting France on the way to reform, on an irreversible way of reform. That's what the country needs. So we need 1,000 more politicians of Macron instead of the old class of people who are no longer.
We need to bring in Philip. We need to bring in.
This is the other fundamental question, my friend.
No, that's being done. That's being done. Okay, we're doing the reforms.
Let him reply, please, Mark.
There is a
Let him reply.
between the French citizens and the political
elite. Thank you.
Let
Let him reply, please.
Now, there's a lot of reforms underway. I mean, the role of the state is important to regulate, and we will keep a balance between the competitiveness, reduction of the deficits, and social justice. There's another taboo to break. It's inflation in Germany. If Germany could stop having the question that you cannot have inflation to run an economy, then we would be in another state of mind also, because we're all run because of this fear of inflation. And today we are in deflation. And look at Japan. Japan has been in deflation for 10 years and never managed to get out of that. So before we enter in this sort of vicious circle of deflation recession, it's important that now, on the European level, we invest with private but also with public spending, both rapidly with new money, so that we relaunch the European economy. And
sorry to interrupt. I have a pal who is a restaurateur here in Paris. He's a talented man. He's got a lovely restaurant. He's selling up and going to London. How does France stop that happening?
This is the big issue, you understand?
I think it's a big issue, isn't it?
For you, yes. But for the others, no. No, seriously speaking, we have to be serious on this because it's a big issue, okay? Beyond this. The question is the necessary state, okay? You cannot ask the state to change if you do not have companies prepared for it. The question is, you cannot ask, the kind of all organization we have if we do not have something prepared for this. And this is why we have a big issue. The big issue is not merely on the public sector, it is on the private sector. We have to organize unions accepting to discuss. And this was the secret from Germany. And of course, the source of the secret of Germany is the Second World War, because before they did not have it. Okay, this is it. We have to be very serious and pragmatic. We do not have discussion within the companies, and this is why we have this kind of always tension. And this is why we do not have tension. We have permanent tension with SMEs or something like that.
But France is not going to get a kind of post-war economic miracle, is it? That kind of thing. It's not going to happen, is it?
What happened with the Mittelstand? We have a Mittelstand which is 1/3 of the size of the Mittelstand, one third. And this is it. If we want to have something, it will come from our Mittelstand. Our Mittelstand is the solution. And when you have
20 years, takes 20 years.
Of course it will.
The minimum 20 to 50
years.
This
is the way.
Because the countries which you call miniature, which are family-owned countries, family-managed countries,
I know.
They have been created 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. There is a tradition, and you don't have that tradition in France.
This tradition comes from the Second World War.
And you will not, has nothing to do with the Second World War. There's only something to do with the decentralized structure of the German economy and the German state. You have sub-centers in Germany, which are extremely proud to be in Baden-Württemberg, in Westphalia. You don't have that in France.
The 19th century, before the Second World War,
Let's meet in
they were concerned. There was a huge process of concentration in Germany. You cannot forget history. Of course, you said that in France we are coming from history, the same from Germany. And what happened is that you have, after the Second World War, a system in which you created the Mittelstand. And
we have not created the Mittelstand. The Mittelstand has created itself.
But you destroyed the big concern.
Can we let Daniela speak, please?
You cannot simply import the model. I totally agree.
Of course.
But France indeed needs job creation. And if you look across the European Union, where does job creation take place at this point in time? It is mostly small and medium-sized enterprises, in particular in crisis countries.
Yes.
So I see your point. I think I'm coming back to my first thoughts. What does France need? If you look at the German Mittelstand, some of the conditions are really the educational system, the infrastructure, and all that is decentralized. That's true. So
and no grandes
écoles.
No grandes écoles.
And it is access to finance.
You detest France so much.
No, I don't.
No, but you do.
I
don't.
At
the beginning, you've been French bashing.
No, I'm not French bashing. I try to help the French to find their freedom.
So you want us to copy everything from Germany?
I know, absolutely not. I want the French to liberate their genius. I very much believe in the genius of the French people. I don't have much esteem for the political class in France. I think we have a European debate. It's totally legitimate to criticize the political system of a country which is so poorly performing that France is in a very bad shape.
Let me just give you a tweet that's come through for what it's worth. A man saying, or it could be a woman, I don't know, this only serves to make French people realise that France is now nothing more than a vassal state. It's a rather depressing view. Let's put that to one side and leave it for what it is. Philip, does there need to be some kind of labour reform to stimulate, to make people take people on, reform of how people are contracted?
And it's taking place. I mean, the social partners are discussing, have discussed. We have this ANI agreement last year, which is coming into place now. But we will do the reforms at a rhythm that enables that the social partners stay together and that we do not have a revolution in the country. So that's what we need.
I need to pause you now because it's time to bring in our very own James Creedon. It's time for Media Watch.
We stop.
Media Watch, of course, is James Creedon. James Creedon's here. James, you've got no chance with these four because they never stop talking. So I'll let you start with what you're saying, and these guys might just argue around you.
All right, Mark. So the topic that's buzzing online today, a lot of people talking about it in France, is an altercation at the Gare de l'Est train station in Paris between a former minister, Nadine Morano, and a woman wearing the full Muslim veil. Now, Nadine Morano, who was a minister in the government of Nicolas Sarkozy, posted an image on her Facebook page with an explanation of what happened, which was she came off the train, she walked past this woman who was wearing the full veil. She reminded her that under French law that in the public space you're not allowed to cover your face.
Is that the
woman ignored her.
Seeing at home, James?
Well, this is an image that she pulled off the internet, which was taken in Cairo, which is in itself getting some degree of criticism. But what happened next, Mark, is what's getting most attention. She went to the police to call upon the police to get involved and to follow up on this incident at the train station. This was a police officer at Gare de l'Est, but the police officer didn't recognise her, asked for her national ID card, which she failed to produce, which many in the media have been saying is actually something that could have seen her arrested as well. So there was a sort of an ironic twist.
You can't produce your ID. So.
That's right. You can be called into the police. So look, it's become a source of mockery online, where you see Batman here telling Nadine Morano to let him go, that he's not wearing a burqa. You have Guillaume Tessé, who was a well-known French Twitter user who blends faces. So you can see here the aggressive approach that she adopted, because the police were forced to issue, Mark, a statement in which they explained the incident, saying that she had behaved in a very aggressive manner.
Nadine Morano as Wolverine, isn't
That's
that?
right. You can see that is actually Nadine Morano's face. Now, just to remind viewers, this is not the first time that Nadine Morano has made a public declaration about a woman wearing a veil in public. Going back to August, she published on her Twitter account 2 images, one of Brigitte Bardot on the front cover of Le Figaro magazine, and the other, a scene that she saw while on holidays, which was a woman appearing to mind her own business, wearing a veil at the beach. Not a full veil, just a regular veil. She said that this was an attack on our culture. In any case, it seems that she's going on a one-woman sort of crusade, if you could call it that. Perhaps it's not the most appropriate word.
It's beginning to look like that.
Crusade is not the word.
Right.
It's not a good word to use.
She's made it into a mission in any case, and this within 2-3 months, as 2 posts online about this issue. So clearly she feels very strongly about it. In any case, some people saying that she perhaps is taking it a little bit too far as well.
Okay, James, anything else to
we'll
stimulate us with?
Later on. That's all I have for
James Cretan there with Media Watch. Last word on our issues about France and finance. Philip, I'll let you start. 10 seconds.
Right. Well, let's work together, because I think that's the most important.
Work
our
together.
colleague says
Jean-Paul, you back that?
A, we are late. B, the discussion within companies is a solution.
Okay, Daniela?
Let's realise that we can only handle this crisis on the European level.
Okay,
Member
Mark,
States
I saved you till last.
Inflation is no alternative.
Okay, thank you all very much indeed. Doing a debate with our guests like you is difficult. I appreciate your time, appreciate your thoughts. Great to see you. James, thank you too. That concludes this section of Live from Paris, but do stay with us.